Bar chords can be a challenge, but they really open up a whole new world when it comes to the amount of chords that you can play on guitar. Today I'm going to show you 4 bar chord shapes that will equate to almost 50 chords that you can play on the instrument. I'm Joshua Kenson, and this is Kenson Guitar Academy. I help new guitar players reach their musical goals. If that sounds like you, make sure to subscribe. So there are definitely some challenges when it comes to learning some bar chords. Most people, when they're learning them, think it's a matter of strength, but really it's a matter of coordination. You have all the strength that you need in order to play a bar chord. Let me show you. So the first shape that I'm going to show you is a major bar chord shape with our root note being on the 6th string. So we're going to go ahead and play this at the 3rd fret here. Okay, so this would make this a G major chord. And we are going to bar, for this example, on the 3rd fret, and we're going to hold all of those strings down. And then we're going to take our 2nd finger and put it on the 3rd string at the 4th fret. We're going to take our 3rd finger and put it on the 5th string at the 5th fret. And then our 4th finger right underneath it on the 4th string at the 5th fret. Okay, so this is what it should sound like. That is G major. Now, a lot of people have issues getting these chords clear. Like, you'll often hear new students play it kind of like this, and you'll hear, like, it's almost there, but it just requires something a little bit more, okay? So usually what ends up happening is the student wants to put extra pressure and they kind of curl their hand up like they're trying to squeeze. So what ends up happening is we start pulling on the strings, and that makes it go out of tune. Don't want that, okay? So what we are looking to do is push those strings directly against the fretboard, and we get that by trying to squeeze between the back of the neck and the front of the neck where your fingers are on the strings, okay? So instead of trying to curl your fingers into a fist, try to think of it as you are like pinching a piece of paper. Just like that. We aren't crumpling the paper, we want to keep it nice and flat still, okay? So just push those strings directly against the fretboard. You can see that my fingers have a nice arch to them on the 2nd and 3rd, 4th fingers, and then a nice straight finger on that 1st finger. And the back of the neck, my thumb is kind of coupled on the opposite side of my 1st finger, applying pressure. It's giving support to that 1st finger. So again, this is what we're looking for. Nice and clear. Now, one thing to think about is our 1st finger, even though it's holding down 6 strings, it's really only important to 3 of those strings because our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers are taking care of the 3rd, 4th, and 5th strings. So really the only strings that matter to our 1st finger on the 6th string, the 2nd string, and the 1st string. So what you really want to do is focus that pressure in those areas. If you are getting a little bit lighter pressure or even not making too much contact there, no big deal. Those aren't ringing out. We are looking for pressure on the 6th, 2nd, and 1st strings, and then our other fingers are taking care of the 3, 4, and 5 strings. Just like that. Now, one thing I want to note before we move on to another shape is this should look somewhat familiar to you. This shape here looks like another chord that you've probably learned if you're starting out, and that chord is E major. So if I was just going to take my 1st finger out of the mix and then I slid this down to the 1st fret, that is E major. These bar chord shapes that we're learning today, we're learning 2 major forms and 2 minor forms, are all derived from their related open chords. E major, E minor, A major, A minor. The reason we have to bar is as we move that shape higher, switch it out with our other fingers here, we no longer have the open strings to work with. So we need something to replace those open strings. So if you almost think of it as, here's that original E shape that we have. But if I play it with my 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers and then act like my 1st finger is the open strings, all I'm really doing is moving it up. So at the 3rd fret, that would be G major. Next up, a minor shape. If we think about our E major into E minor, what's the difference? Well, E major is right here. We lift off our 1st finger, we have E minor. So let's do that same thing with our major shape over here, okay? So we have our major shape that we just learned. Now, if I take off my 2nd finger and just leave my 3rd and 4th finger on there, we have the minor shape. Now, instead of leaving my middle finger just kind of hanging out here, what I'm going to do is lay it on top of my 1st finger to add support, give extra focus and pressure on that 1st finger to press down evenly. And we get a nice clear ring. on that first shape, there were only 3 strings that mattered to that bar. Now, as soon as we take off that second finger and we apply pressure there, we now have 4 strings. It's the first, second, third, and then obviously the root note on that 6th string. And then we have our 5th and 4th strings right here being taken care of by our 3rd and 4th finger. Again, that is a minor shape, in this case, G minor. So now let's take a look at 2 shapes where our root note is on the 5th string. So one thing we're gonna have to do is also omit the 6th string, okay? So if we think about our major shape, so A major, we've learned this chord before, I'm sure. Our root note is on the 5th string, include all the strings below it. And we are fretting the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings. We have open 5th and 1st strings. So to form this a little bit higher as a bar chord, there's a couple ways we can accomplish this. One seems to make more functional sense, but it's a little bit more difficult to play. And then one is, I say, you know, a little easier to play depending on how your fingers work. Some people's fingers, I don't know about you, but my finger will bend backwards like this. I have had students where their finger does not move that way. I don't know if that's because it's not double jointed or something, but having that flexibility in that 3rd finger and that ring finger allows one of these shapes to be a lot easier. But if your finger does not bend that way, I'm going to give you an alternate way to play it. So the first way that I show people how to do this, if they do have that bend in that 3rd finger, what we're going to do is bar on the 3rd fret with our 1st finger, and I'm not even going to cover the 6th string here. I'm just going to let it be right underneath it. I'm going to almost touch it a little bit so it mutes it out in case I happen to catch it when I'm strumming, we don't hear it. And then my 3rd finger is going to also bar. That's what makes this one extra difficult. We have 2 bars on the 1st finger and the 3rd finger. It is going to bar over the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd strings. And the reason we need that little dip right there, that arch in our finger, that bend there, is because we need that 3rd finger to get out of the way of the 1st string so we can hear that 1st string that's being held down by our 1st finger. So again, 1st finger is taking care of the 5th string, and then my 3rd finger is taking care of the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd, and then my 1st finger again is taking care of that 1st string. So we need that 3rd finger to get out of the way so we can hear that full chord. And no kidding, it is a difficult chord, but this is going to build strength and extra coordination in your playing. Now, very common, like I said, if you can't get that bend, it's very common to hear this, where you'll hear good, 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 and then not really ringing out on that last one. So some people find this way easier to play. So in one sense, it's more difficult because we are using 4 fingers, but we don't have to do the double bar and worry about that 3rd finger having to get out of the way of the 1st string. So this one, we are going to bar with that 1st finger, and then think of it as if we were playing A major instead of like this or like this. Some people learn it like this with the 3 fingers in a row. We're going to do that method, but with our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th fingers. So if you think about A major being played like that, if we move that shape up to the 5th fret and then we bar with that 1st finger over the 3rd fret, we can get this bar chord shape for the major form of the 5th string root. In this case, this is C major. So we've learned the major shapes for both 6th string and 5th string roots, and we've learned the minor shape for the 6th string root. Well, what about the minor shape for the 5th string root? Well, this one's definitely easier than the major shape for the 5th string. What we're gonna do is mimic that A minor chord. We're gonna relate it down to this open A minor, but we're gonna play it with our 2nd, 3rd, and 4th finger, bring those up to the 4th and 5th frets, and then bar over that 3rd fret with our 5th string being the root. That is a C minor. Again, I am muting out that 6th string. I do not want to include it in the chord. And you could see where a major form with the 6th string root and a minor form of the 5th string root are very in common shape-wise. It's just moving it down lower. So much like our E major and A minor, same shape, just different strings and different root notes. Now the great thing with these 4 shapes is we learned it at the 3rd fret here. G major, G minor, C major, C minor, but I could do this at any fret. 1st fret, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, so on. And really, you're probably only going to take this to the 10th, 11th, maybe if you're on an electric guitar going past the 12th fret. But if we have 12 different notes that we can apply as a root note to each shape. That gives us 48 chords, almost 50 chords that we can play learning these 4 shapes. So even though they're going to take you a little bit more time to master, because it does require a little bit more force applied and maybe a little bit more finesse with how you place your fingers, it is definitely worth it. It opens up a whole new world of chords that you can play outside of those open shapes that you first learn. Spend some time with these 4 shapes, especially that 5th string root for that major one that has the double bar in there. That's the one that really gives students the most problems to begin with. But even just learning those 3, that's 36 chords right there that you learned. But get that double bar down or use your 3 other fingers, and you're able to play a whole bunch of new chords. Now, after you've spent some time learning these shapes and you feel pretty comfortable with them, how you go about practicing these would be very similar to how you would practice their related open chords, going from like an E major to an A minor. So let's take G major and C minor. You might just take a basic strumming pattern, either 4 strums down or a down, down, up, down. Maybe play that twice on each chord. Again. Switch, again, then back. And you could do that with the minor shape. Let's do G minor and C major. So G minor, again, and C major, again, and E minor, and so on. So just take it a couple chords at a time, really focus on getting the accuracy in each one of these chords, and then you'll eventually be able to apply them to a whole bunch of songs. If you feel your hands start to cramp up on you or anything, give it a rest for 5 minutes and then get back to it. You don't want to practice these to the point where you actually hurt yourself, which if you're on an acoustic, you might get tired a little bit quicker because usually on an acoustic it has thicker strings than you would on an electric. Eventually these are going to feel really natural and incorporate into your playing quite easily. If you found this video helpful, please let me know with a like and make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I have a lot more content on the way. If you have any questions about this or any other video I've made or any guitar related question in general, please leave a comment down below. I'd be happy to answer. Thank you again for watching. I'm Joshua Kenson, and I'll see you in the next one.